Welcome to a new daily top Askreddit video. Today's topic: what are some not fun facts? Someone commits suicide every 40 seconds. I remember George Carlin, a dark humor comedian, said this during a show, then gleefully looked at his watch and said, "There goes another one." Still smiling. I miss George so much. RIP. Some whales, when old, no longer have enough strength to swim for as long, so if they swim too deep, they might not have enough strength to swim back up to get air, so they end up drowning. Edit: some people smarter than I have pointed out that they technically drown, but instead suffocate from the lack of air. This is apparently because whales have to manually breathe instead of it being done automatically. On the topic of dead whales, whenever they die and their bodies reach the surface, they will eventually explode like a balloon. The reason they reach the surface is the same as why they blow up. Gas buildup. Then they sink and provide food and shelter for thousands of tiny creatures. And their death creates a whole new ecosystem like meaty dead coral reef brimming with life. If you get a roach infestation bad enough, they will eat your skin while you sleep. They will also crawl into your ear, which is a horrible, horrible experience. That sounds like it's coming from experience. Unfortunately it is. The reason why dogs love squeaky toys is because it sounds like tiny animals dying. I've always thought this. And then when my dog rips out a squeaker and brings it to me, it scares me. It's like my dog is showing me she can kill things and rip out their life force. And she wants to be congratulated for it. Edit: just to be clear, I do congratulate my dog after and throw away the plastic. I'm proud of my vicious, 10-pound killer, of stuffed animals, of a multiple centuries of hunting instinct. She's just bringing you a present. I had a Rottweiler/lab mix. He'd carry his squeaky ball around so gently, and anytime he grabbed it a little too hard and it squeaked, he'd immediately drop it and look so sad and concerned. He was such a good boy. Might be wrong, but I remember hearing retriever breeds, Goldens/labs, were bred to have soft mouths, so when they'd fetch the bird you shot down it wouldn't get all mangled. He might have been doing something similar. Sounds like a sweetie either way. There's a plant in Australia called the gympie tree that has hairs all over it that are small enough and are compared to hypodermic needles. And whenever a person touches the plant, these hairs stick into your skin and inject a toxin that causes a pain compared to the affected area being covered in acid and set on fire. And what makes it worse is that the pain lasts months to years. Edit: changed spelling of some words. Pretty sure there was a guy that used it for toilet paper. Yep, and unsurprisingly he shot himself. Edit: wow, my first award and my highest ranked comment in true Reddit style is about a guy who went through the 3 stages of gympie: grief, shock, shot. What the hell is wrong with Australia? How can a place be so hostile to Homo sapiens? It has a secret it's trying to hide in the outback somewhere. Hedgehogs can get a disease called wobbly hedgehog syndrome, which is an adorable name for hedgehogmies. Bloody Elmy hedgehogs got the wibbly wobbly upsettersaroot disease roicked in the knickers. When it comes to heart disease, the very first symptom in roughly 1/3 of all cases is sudden death. Meaning you could be perfectly healthy and drop dead because you had heart disease and didn't know it. Check your family history, people. Yup, my old man was 64, ate healthy, ran every day, had an old guy 6-pack, didn't drink or smoke, and loved his job. One day he just literally fell over dead, silent ischemia. What kind of tests would have prevented this? There are a few things that, if you flush down the toilet, will most certainly make it into the hands of the operator at your local water plant. They are called the 3 Cs. Condoms, cockroaches, and corn. Their hands. You would hope they could invest in some kind of pool skimmer net. They like raw dogging the poopy water like that. Also so much hair. Like hairball boulders. And the condoms tie into one another and not like a rat king. Worked at a wastewater treatment plant for a few months. I interned at one for a little while. To this day the sight of canned corn makes me nauseated. Edit: LMAO, I fixed it, guys. I wanna place a note into a plastic bag that says thank you for your hard work, and flush it down the toilet for the workers to find. Use a condom instead of a plastic bag. Real life not fun fact: after a vasectomy there are still healthy living sperms in your semen. You'll have to ejaculate for about 50 times before you are out of them. Can confirm. My uncle got a vasectomy and his wife was pregnant with twins a few weeks later. By the mailman. So you're saying it'll only take a week at most? 3 days in my case. Statistically, at least one person who's on Reddit right now won't be alive tomorrow. Is it because you murder one Redditor a day? Oh man, I hope so. Talk about a plot twist. Is it me? Please let it be me. Dibs on /u/ the Spanish imposition s stuff. I call dibs first. The outside of your eye prevents your immune system from ever knowing about the inside of your eye. If a puncture allows the two to meet, your immune system may attack and destroy your eye as an invader. Terms for the horrified who cling to their skepticism as a shield against acknowledging this UFO fact to Google: immune privilege of the eye. You're welcome. And that's why if one eye gets damaged and goes blind, you can lose both eyes. The immune system attacks the other intact eye, causing it to go blind. Till my eyes are like my government. That's even less fun than the original fact. Hell, my immune system doesn't even realize my brain and spine aren't enemies. Stupid me's. Wobbly hedgehog syndrome. Babies can die after consuming honey. The botulinum toxin, like the one in Botox, will paralyze their muscles, causing floppy baby syndrome. Edit: to clarify, the bacterial spores, basically a super-resistant sleepy form of the microbe, are in the honey, not the actual toxin. After going into the human, they start the party and produce the toxin. They really should have named that something else. Just like wobbly hedgehog syndrome. Who's naming these things? You can die from Alzheimer's due to the brain forgetting how to swallow or breathe. That's usually how you die from Alzheimer's. Yeah. But a surprising amount of people don't even know you can die from Alzheimer's. The Spanish flu was one of the most lethal pandemics in history, edited out the most. There are lots of elements that determine the deadliness of these various diseases and too much uncertainty in death tolls to say for sure which disease was the most lethal. People who caught it bled from their ears, experienced nausea and extreme fever, their skin turned shades of blue, and experienced extreme pain from the slightest touch. It caused internal hemorrhaging. 18 to 35 adults' immune systems, which would typically be considered the strongest, would react so strongly that their bodies would fill up with antibodies and fluid, literally drowning the infected with their own defense mechanism. This happened for a specific reason, see Peak Mars comment. Edit: if you are looking for a good source, The Great Influenza by John M. Barry is a good one. It was the worst of the 20th century, but not all of history. The plague has a much higher death toll for I think 1,348 to 1,350. It is kind of interesting why they call it the Spanish influenza of 1918, though. Spain was one of the few places actually reporting accurate morbidity and mortality rates. There are low-end predictions and high-end predictions for both cases. It is near impossible to determine exactly how many people each pandemic killed, but the Spanish flu was deadlier based on the time each was active. Spain was also a neutral country in the war, and they didn't have to worry about cutting into public morale like the warring countries. The people with the strongest immune systems were more prone to death. This part isn't entirely true. 29-year-olds had by far the highest death rates, but go older or younger by 10 years and death rates are similar to other bad flu seasons. What made the 1919 Spanish flu so deadly to those specifically born around 1889 was actually the 1889 flu strain. If this was the first flu strain you were exposed to as a young child, those antibodies stayed with you. It was those specific antibodies that went into overdrive against the 1919 strain. In effect, people died from the 1919 flu because the 1889 flu had been their first flu strain. This effect was predicted and seen again in Hong Kong in the 60s. Interestingly enough, it was also seen in Canada in 2009. At the start of the 2009 flu season, parts of Canada had chosen the wrong strain to vaccinate with. It was quickly remedied and parts of Canada never used it, but those who had gotten that vaccine were more likely to be hospitalized. The flu is a very interesting /deadly disease that we see every year. Brain aneurysms can happen at any time in your life and you won't know until it's too late, or if a doctor accidentally finds it. My cousin had his first brain aneurysm at 23 in 2003. Week prior complained of headaches. Was taking hot shower and collapsed. Made a flight to hospital and the docs operated on brain and managed to save him. Told us he'd be like a little kid for rest of life. He managed to make a full recovery within 5 years, learned to walk forward/talk again, everything. It was amazing and unimaginable at the same time. Only reminder was the scar on his head. He had his second and fatal brain aneurysm in his sleep at age 36 in 2016. No symptoms this time. He was always living on borrowed time. Just glad we got an additional 13 years with him before he left us for good. What symptoms would cause a doctor to accidentally find an aneurysm? Edit. Thanks for the answers. If it makes you feel any better, I complained of headaches for about 3 years and no one thought to give me an MRI. Then I had a brain aneurysm pop and now I get one every year. They are not always as bad as people think. I'm more or less fine bar crippling headaches, memory problems and lots of other weird shit lol.